At 72 years old, I thought the hardest fights of my life were behind me. I was wrong. The hardest fight was with my own son, over money I earned, over respect I deserved, and over a decision that would haunt both of us forever. My name is Henry, and this is exactly what happens when your child sees you as nothing more than a walking bank account. You're watching Betrayal HQ, where family secrets unravel and blood doesn't always mean loyalty. If you're new here, we share the real stories that families don't want you to hear, straight from the people who lived them. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell, because today's story will shock you. Dad, just give me the money now. What's the point of waiting? That's what my son Jason said to me last Tuesday. 43 years of working in a steel mill, and my own flesh and blood wanted me to hand it all over like I owed him something. But when I refused, when I told him that money was for my retirement, that's when I discovered what my son was really capable of. I made a decision that destroyed our relationship forever. I left everything to a complete stranger. This is my story. I stared at my pension statement for the 100th time this month. 43 years of working at the steel mill, saving every penny I could. My hands shook as I folded the paper. At 72, I thought I'd earned some peace. But Jason had other plans. My son called again yesterday, demanding I hand over my retirement fund. Dad, you're just sitting on all that money, he'd said. I need it now for my business. Business. That's what he called his gambling and drinking these days. I remembered when Jason was little how he'd help me in the garage, asking a million questions about everything. Where did that curious boy go? When did he become this angry man who only called when he needed money? The doorbell rang. Probably Jason again. He'd been coming by every few days, getting more aggressive each time. I shuffled to the window and peeked through the curtains. Sure enough, there he was, pacing on my front porch like a caged animal. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Finally, Jason snapped, pushing past me into the house. We need to talk. I closed the door slowly, watching him pace around my living room. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. Jason, you look terrible. When's the last time you ate? Don't change the subject, Dad. He spun around to face me. I've been thinking about our conversation. You're being selfish, keeping all that money to yourself. I'm your only son. That pension should be mine. My chest tightened. That pension is for my retirement. I worked my entire life for it. Retirement? Jason laughed bitterly. You're 72. How much longer do you think you need it? I have debts, Dad. Real problems. You're just hoarding money you'll never spend. I sat down in my old recliner, suddenly feeling every one of my 72 years. Jason, I raised you better than this. That money isn't yours until I'm gone. His face turned red. That's exactly my point. Why wait? Give it to me now when I actually need it. The words hit me like a slap. You know what, Jason? I stood up, anger coursing through my veins. I've been thinking about changing my will anyway. Jason's expression shifted from anger to confusion. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you're not the right person to inherit anything from me. The words came out before I could stop them, but I didn't regret saying them. Jason's laugh was cold and sharp. Right, Dad. Like you'd actually do that. You're just trying to scare me. I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. I've already been talking to a lawyer. Funny thing about wills, they can be changed any time the person wants. You're bluffing. But his voice wavered slightly. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised from a baby, and felt nothing but disappointment. Try me. Jason stepped closer, his fists clenched. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm your blood, your only family. Family doesn't threaten each other, I said quietly. Family doesn't demand money like you owe them something. Jason stared at me for a long moment, then turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. The next morning, I was pulling weeds from my small garden when I heard footsteps behind me. Morning, Henry. I turned to see Tom Martinez, my neighbor from 3 houses down. He was in his 40s, with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of honest work. Tom had moved to our street 2 years ago after his divorce. Morning, Tom. I straightened up, my back protesting. Saw your son leave yesterday. Looked pretty angry. I grimaced. Jason's going through a rough patch. Tom nodded without judgment. We all have those. Speaking of which, I picked up your mail yesterday when the mailman dropped it by my fence. Been meaning to bring it over. He handed me a small stack of letters. This wasn't the first time Tom had helped me out. Last winter, he'd shoveled my walkway without being asked. When I'd gotten food poisoning in the spring, he'd checked on me daily. He never wanted anything in return. Thanks, Tom. You're always looking out for me. He shrugged. That's what neighbors do. As he walked away, I found myself thinking about Jason's words. Maybe family wasn't just about blood. That evening, Jason returned. This time he wasn't alone. He'd brought my sister Dorothy. Henry, Dorothy said, settling onto my couch with a heavy sigh. Jason tells me you're talking nonsense about changing your will. I shot a look at Jason, who was standing by the fireplace with his arms crossed. It's not nonsense, Dorothy. But honey, Jason is your son. Your only child. Who else would you leave your money to? Tom Martinez, I said simply. The room went dead silent. Dorothy's mouth fell open. Jason's face turned white, then red. Tom Martinez? Jason's voice was barely controlled. The guy who lives down the street? Dad, you've lost your mind. My mind is perfectly fine, I replied. Tom's been more of a son to me in 2 years than you've been in the last 10. Jason exploded. That's ridiculous. I'm your blood. That stranger has no right to our family money. It's my money, Jason. And Tom earned my respect by treating me like a human being instead of a bank account. Dorothy tried to mediate, but Jason was beyond reason. He kicked my coffee table and stormed out again, leaving Dorothy shaking her head sadly. Word spread fast through our small town. Within a week, my phone was ringing constantly. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to chat. Church friends stopped by with concerned looks. Henry, surely you're not serious about this will business, said Pastor Williams during one of his visits. I was getting tired of explaining myself. I'm completely serious. My nephew Marcus called, from across the state. Uncle Henry, Jason's really upset. Maybe you should reconsider. Even my Dr. Peterson, brought it up during my checkup. Henry, family disputes can be very stressful at your age. But the worst was when my own sister stopped talking to me. Dorothy chose Jason's side, convinced I was having some kind of mental breakdown. The isolation hurt more than I expected. These people had known me my whole life, yet they couldn't understand why I'd reward kindness over entitlement. Jason, meanwhile, was telling everyone who would listen that I'd gone senile. He painted himself as the concerned son, trying to protect his poor, confused father. I started to doubt myself. Was I being fair? Was I letting anger cloud my judgment? Then Tom brought me soup when I caught a cold, and I remembered why I'd made my decision. I couldn't sleep that night, so I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about the past. Tom's kindness reminded me of something I'd tried to forget. 3 years ago, I'd had a heart attack while working in my garage. Jason was supposed to visit that weekend, but he'd canceled last minute to go to some casino in Atlantic City. I'd lain on that concrete floor for 6 hours before my mailman found me. I'd nearly died alone. During my week in the hospital, Jason visited once. He spent most of the time complaining about how my medical bills would affect his inheritance. But there was more. Last year, when my old car died, I'd asked Jason to help me buy a replacement. He'd insisted I get the cheapest used car possible. Why waste money on something fancy at your age, he'd said. Tom, on the other hand, had spent his own weekend helping me shop for a reliable car. He'd even brought his mechanic friend to check the engine. The memories came flooding back. All the times Jason had disappointed me. All the ways Tom had stepped up. I wasn't being unfair. I was finally being honest about what real family looked like. My decision was right. I just had to find the courage to stick with it. Jason's visits became daily occurrences. He'd show up at my door with tears in his eyes, begging me to reconsider. Dad, I'm sorry about everything, he said during one particularly dramatic performance. I know I've been difficult, but I'm your son. Blood is thicker than water. Sometimes he'd bring flowers, or my favorite cookies from the bakery downtown. Other times he'd reminisce about good memories from his childhood, trying to manipulate my emotions. "Remember when we used to go fishing at Miller's Pond?" he'd say. "You taught me everything about life during those trips." I did remember. I also remembered that he'd stopped wanting to go fishing when he turned 16 and discovered girls. The pressure was relentless. Jason would call me multiple times a day, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, always desperate. "Please, Dad," he begged during one late-night call. "I'll change. I'll be the son you want me to be." But I'd heard these promises before. After every fight, every disappointment, Jason would swear he'd be different. The pattern never changed. I started screening my calls and avoiding the windows when I saw him coming up the walk. The stress was wearing me down, but I refused to give in. 2 weeks later, I discovered the truth about Jason's financial situation. My bank called to inform me that someone had tried to access my account using my social security number. When I pressed Jason about it during his next visit, he finally broke down. "Dad, I owe some bad people a lot of money," he sobbed. "Gambling debts. They're threatening to hurt me if I don't pay up soon." The full picture became clear. Jason hadn't just been asking for my pension. He'd been counting on it to save his life. "How much do you owe?" I asked. $80,000. I nearly choked. My entire pension was only slightly more than that. "Jason, why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I knew you'd lecture me about gambling." He wiped his eyes. "Dad, I'm desperate. These aren't the kind of people you can negotiate with." For a moment, I felt sorry for him. My only child was in real danger, and part of me wanted to help. But then I realized something that chilled me to the bone. Jason hadn't come to me for help or advice. He'd come to take my money and leave me with nothing. He'd been willing to rob his own father to pay his debts. That night, Tom knocked on my door with a pot of homemade chili. "Thought you might be hungry," he said. "You've seemed stressed lately." We ate together in comfortable silence until Tom finally spoke up. "Henry, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you look like you could use a break from all this family drama." I set down my spoon. "What do you mean?" "Well, my company's sending me to Phoenix for a month-long training program. I was thinking, maybe you'd like to come with me? Get away from everything for a while." The offer was tempting. A month without Jason's constant pressure, without the phone calls and guilt trips. "I couldn't impose on you like that," I said. "It wouldn't be an imposition. I'd enjoy the company, and you could use the sunshine." I thought about it seriously. Escaping sounded wonderful, but something held me back. This was my home, my life. Running away wouldn't solve anything. "Thanks for the offer, Tom. It means more than you know. But I need to see this through." Tom nodded. "I understand. Just know the offer stands if you change your mind." As he gathered the dishes, I watched him carefully. This man barely knew me, yet he was willing to share his vacation to help me find peace. The next morning, Jason arrived with a manila folder and a triumphant expression. "Dad, we need to talk about your friend Tom." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. "What about him?" Jason spread papers across my kitchen table. "I did some research." "You're precious. Tom has a criminal record." I stared at the documents. There it was, in black and white. Tom Martinez had been arrested for assault 10 years ago. He attacked someone in a bar fight, Jason said smugly. Spent 6 months in jail. Is this really the kind of person you want inheriting your life savings? My hands shook as I read the police report. The victim had been hospitalized with a broken jaw. "Dad, this proves that Tom isn't who you think he is. He's a violent criminal who's been manipulating you." I looked up at Jason's satisfied face and felt sick. Not because of what I'd learned about Tom, but because I could see how pleased Jason was to have found this ammunition. "Jason, this happened 10 years ago. People can change, can they?" "Dad, you're 72 years old. You're vulnerable. This man is taking advantage of you." Despite Jason's cruelty, doubt crept into my mind. Had I been naive about Tom? Was my judgment really that poor? That evening, I confronted Tom directly. "Tom, I need to ask you about something." I said when he came by to check on me. His expression grew serious. "What's on your mind?" "Jason found some information about your past. About an arrest." Tom's face went pale. He sat down heavily in my kitchen chair. "I was wondering when that would come up," he said quietly. "So, it's true?" "Yes." Tom met my eyes directly. "I made a terrible mistake 10 years ago. I was drunk, angry about my divorce, and I hit someone who probably didn't deserve it. I waited for him to continue. I spent 6 months in jail, and it was the wake-up call I needed. I haven't touched alcohol since. I've been going to anger management classes. I volunteer at a domestic violence shelter now, trying to make amends." Tom's voice was steady, remorseful, but not defensive. "Henry, I should have told you about this myself. I was afraid you'd judge me for my past mistakes." I studied his face carefully. This wasn't the response of someone trying to manipulate me. This was genuine remorse. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I'm not that person anymore. But I understand if this changes things between us." After Tom left, I sat alone in my living room, thinking. Jason returned within an hour, clearly expecting to find me ready to change my will. "Well, Dad, did you confront your criminal friend?" "I did. And I'm keeping my will exactly as it is." Jason's mouth fell open. "Are you insane? He's a violent felon. He made a mistake 10 years ago and paid for it. You're making mistakes right now and expecting me to pay for them. That's not the same thing, isn't it?" I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in weeks. Tom was honest with me when I asked. "You've been lying to me for months about your gambling debts." Jason's face turned red. "I was trying to protect you." "No, Jason. You were trying to use me. He's manipulating you, Dad. Can't you see that? He's been planning this from the beginning." I thought about all the times Tom had helped me without being asked, all the kindness he'd shown without expecting anything in return. "The only person who's been manipulating me is you." Jason stared at me for a long moment. Then his expression turned cold. "Fine, but don't come crying to me when that criminal shows his true colors." Jason's desperation reached new heights over the following days. He started showing up with other family members, trying to stage interventions. "Dad's not thinking clearly," he told anyone who would listen. "He's being influenced by a stranger with a criminal past." My cousin Betty called, worried. "Henry, Jason says you're giving all your money to some ex-convict. That doesn't sound like you." The whisper campaign was working. People I'd known for decades started looking at me with concern and pity. Jason even convinced Dr. Peterson to schedule an unnecessary cognitive assessment. "Henry, your family is worried about your decision-making," the doctor said gently. I passed every test with flying colors, but the damage was done. The whole town was talking about poor, confused Henry and his manipulative neighbor. Jason spread rumors that Tom was pressuring me, that he'd isolated me from my family. Some people even suggested Tom might be stealing from me. The lies hurt worse than anything Jason had done before. But what hurt most was seeing how easily people believed them. I started to understand why abuse victims often suffer in silence. When someone you love turns others against you, the isolation becomes almost unbearable. The pressure from my family intensified. Dorothy organized a meeting at her house with all our relatives. "Henry, we're staging this intervention because we love you," she said, tears in her eyes. Around the table sat cousins, nephews, and family friends, all looking at me with concerned faces. "We think you're being taken advantage of," said my nephew Marcus. "This Tom person has isolated you from your family." "He hasn't isolated me from anyone," I replied. "Jason's behavior has done that." "Dad, please," Jason said, playing the part of the concerned son perfectly. "We just want what's best for you." My great-niece Amanda, barely 21, spoke up. "Uncle Henry, I think you should give Jason a chance to prove himself. Maybe give him a small portion of the inheritance as a test." They'd all bought into Jason's narrative completely. I was the confused old man, being manipulated by a criminal stranger. "I appreciate your concern," I said finally, "but my mind is made up." As I drove home alone, I wondered if the whole world was crazy, or if it was just me. Things escalated when Jason hired a lawyer to challenge my mental competency. Mr. Thompson, the attorney, Mr. Burke, said during our meeting, your son is concerned about your recent decision-making. I'd hired my own lawyer. Mrs. Chen, a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in elder law. My client is completely competent, she said firmly. He's passed every cognitive test with excellent scores. But Jason's lawyer pressed on. Mr. Thompson, isn't it true that you've become isolated from your family? That you're being influenced by a man with a violent criminal history? That's not how I see it, I replied. The legal battle was expensive and exhausting. Jason painted a picture of a vulnerable old man being manipulated by a calculating neighbor. Mrs. Chen fought back hard, presenting evidence of my mental sharpness and documented proof of Jason's years of financial pressure. Your Honor, she argued, this is not a case of elder abuse. This is a case of a son who feels entitled to his father's money and is willing to destroy his father's reputation to get it. The proceedings dragged on for weeks. Every detail of my life was examined and questioned. Through it all, Tom stayed quietly supportive, never asking about the will or pressuring me to defend him publicly. During one particularly difficult court session, Jason's lawyer presented what they thought was their smoking gun. Mr. Martinez, the attorney said, addressing Tom, who'd been called as a witness, isn't it true that you befriended Mr. Thompson specifically because you knew about his financial situation? Tom looked uncomfortable but answered honestly. I befriended Henry because he seemed lonely and I had time to help. But you knew he was wealthy? I knew he owned his house and had a pension. Most retirees do. And it didn't occur to you that your sudden friendship might be seen as suspicious? I wasn't looking for anything from Henry. I still don't want anything from him. Jason's lawyer smiled. Yet you stand to inherit his entire estate. That wasn't my idea or my request. Henry made that decision on his own. I watched Tom handle the aggressive questioning with dignity and honesty. He never tried to manipulate the situation or play victim. Meanwhile, Jason sat in the bread gallery, coaching his lawyer with whispered suggestions and angry gestures. The contrast between the two men couldn't have been clearer. The turning point came when Mrs. Chen uncovered Jason's financial records during discovery. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence of Mr. Jason Thompson's gambling addiction and debt situation. She spread out bank statements, casino receipts, and loan documents. Mr. Thompson has accumulated over $90,000 in gambling debts over the past 2 years. He's borrowed money from multiple payday loan companies and has been making minimum payments on 14 different credit cards. Jason's face went white as his financial life was exposed. Furthermore, phone records show that Mr. Thompson has been in contact with known bookmakers and has made over 300 calls to his father in the past 6 months, often multiple times per day. The judge looked at Jason with new understanding. Mr. Thompson, were you aware of your son's financial situation when you made your will? Yes, Your Honor. Jason told me about his debts after I'd already decided to change my will. His gambling problem wasn't the reason for my decision, but it confirmed that I'd made the right choice. Mrs. Chen continued, Your Honor, this case isn't about mental competency. It's about a gambling addict who sees his father as an ATM and can't accept that his father has other plans for his money. After hearing all the evidence, I knew I had to make a statement to the court. Your Honor, I'd like to address this court directly. The judge nodded. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of everyone's attention. I'm 72 years old. I've worked hard my entire life and saved every penny I could. I raised my son the best way I knew how, but somewhere along the way, he came to believe that my money belonged to him. I looked directly at Jason, who was staring at the floor. Tom Martinez has been a better son to me in 2 years than Jason has been in the last 10. He's helped me without expecting anything in return. He's treated me with respect and kindness. My voice grew stronger. Yes, Tom made a mistake 10 years ago. But people can change. Jason is making mistakes right now and refuses to change. I turned back to the judge. I'm not confused or manipulated. I'm making a conscious choice to reward kindness over entitlement. The courtroom was completely silent. My money is mine to give away as I see fit, and I see fit to give it to someone who's earned it through character, not just genetics. Jason's desperation reached its peak during the final court session. "Dad, please," he called out as I walked toward the exit. "I'm your son, your blood." I turned around slowly. The courtroom was still full of people waiting for the judge's decision. "Jason, you stopped being my son the day you decided I owed you something just for raising you." His face crumpled. "But I love you, Dad." "No, Jason. You love my money. There's a difference. I'll change. I'll get help for the gambling. You've promised that before. This time will be different." I looked at my son, really looked at him. His expensive clothes, his perfectly styled hair, his manicured nails. Even in court fighting for my money, he was more concerned with appearances than substance. "Goodbye, Jason." As I walked out of the courtroom, I heard him sobbing behind me. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a bigger part felt relief. After 43 years of enabling his selfishness, I was finally free. Tom was waiting for me outside the courthouse. "How did it go?" he asked quietly. I think the judge understood what this was really about. We walked to his truck in silence. I was emotionally drained, but strangely peaceful. "Tom, I need you to know something," I said as we drove back to my house. "I didn't change my will to hurt Jason. I changed it because you've shown me what real family looks like." Tom pulled over and parked. "Henry, I need to tell you something too. I never expected this. When I started helping you, it was just because it was the right thing to do. I know. If you wanted to change your will back, I'd understand. I don't need your money." I smiled. "That's exactly why you deserve it." Tom's eyes were wet. "I promise you, if something happens to you, I'll use that money to help other people the way you've helped me understand what kindness means. I know you will." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the small town I'd called home for 7 decades. The judge's ruling came down 2 weeks later. Mrs. Chen called with the news. "Henry, you won. The court found you completely competent and upheld your right to distribute your estate as you see fit." I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Winning meant my relationship with Jason was officially over. The judge had been scathing in his assessment of Jason's. "This court finds no evidence of mental incapacity or undue influence," the ruling read. "Rather, the evidence suggests a pattern of financial pressure and emotional manipulation by the plaintiff against his father." Jason was ordered to pay court costs and attorney fees. The judge also recommended he seek professional help for his gambling addiction. Mrs. Chen warned me that Jason might appeal, but she doubted he had the financial resources to continue fighting. That evening, Tom came over with a bottle of sparkling cider to celebrate. "To justice," he said, raising his glass. "To family," I replied. "The kind you choose." The final confrontation with Jason came 3 days later. He appeared at my door one last time, looking defeated and desperate. "Dad, the court was wrong. You know that, right?" I let him in, knowing this would probably be our last conversation. "Jason, sit down." He collapsed onto my couch, suddenly looking much older than his 45 years. "I don't understand how it came to this," he said. "I'm your son. Yes, you are. And I love you. But love doesn't mean I have to enable your self-destructive behavior. So you're really going to leave everything to a stranger?" "Tom isn't a stranger. He's been more present in my life than you have." Jason was quiet for a long moment. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Get help for your gambling. Find a real job. Learn to take care of yourself. But the people I owe money to are not my responsibility." Jason stared at me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "I can't believe you're choosing him over me." "I'm not choosing him over you, Jason. You chose gambling over me a long time ago." He left without saying goodbye. 6 months later, I was sitting in my garden when Mrs. Chen called with unexpected news. "Henry, I thought you should know. Jason filed for bankruptcy last week." I wasn't surprised, but I felt a stab of sadness anyway. "Is he safe?" "As far as in, I know. He entered a gambling addiction treatment program and got a job at a warehouse. It's a start. Part of me wanted to call him, to check on him, but I knew any contact would just restart the cycle of manipulation. Tom appeared around the corner of my house, carrying a bag of groceries. "Thought I'd make you my famous meatloaf tonight," he said cheerfully. I watched him unpack the groceries in my kitchen, humming quietly to himself. He'd never asked about the will again, never treated me differently because of it. "Tom," I said suddenly, "do you think I was too hard on Jason?" He considered the question carefully. "I think you were exactly as hard as you needed to be. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices." That evening, we ate dinner together while watching the sunset from my back porch. It was peaceful in a way my life hadn't been in years. A year has passed since the court ruling. My health is stable, my mind is clear, and my conscience is at peace. Tom still lives down the street, still checks on me regularly, still expects nothing in return. He's dating a nice woman named Patricia who works at the library. She's good for him. I haven't heard from Jason directly, but Dorothy tells me he's still sober and still working. She speaks to me now, having finally understood that I wasn't confused or manipulated. Last month, I updated my will one more time. Tom will still inherit the bulk of my estate, but I've set aside a small amount for Jason. Enough to help him if he ever gets his life together, but not enough to enable another gambling binge. Some people might call this cruel, but I call it love. Real love sometimes means making hard choices. I sleep well these days, knowing that when my time comes, my life savings will go to someone who understands their true value. Tom won't waste the money I spent 43 years earning. He'll use it wisely. Maybe help other people the way he helped me. That's what family does. They take care of each other and pass on something meaningful. I never had to choose between my son and my neighbor. Jason made that choice for me the day he decided my worth was measured in dollars. I chose love over blood, character over genetics, and peace over chaos. And I've never been happier with any decision in my life. Think Henry's story was emotional? Tomorrow's story will leave you cheering. While 2-year-old Walter was recovering from heart surgery, his daughter committed the ultimate betrayal. My daughter tried to steal my house while I was in the hospital, so I filed eviction papers from my bedside. What happened next proves that karma is real, and justice can be served from a hospital bed. Hit subscribe and that bell icon, because at Betrayal HQ, every family betrayal gets the ending it deserves. See you tomorrow.